Now the next question is, are miracles impossible? Should we think, some people say that, right? Some people say, miracles are impossible. Well, they're not impossible if God exists, right? If there is a God that created the whole world and established a natural order in the first place, miracles are not impossible, you see. If God exists and He can choose to intervene upon the natural order that He created, you see. He can produce, in other words, I've got here in your text, God can produce an effect independently of the laws that He created. He can make an exception to His own laws that He created in the first place. So He's not, if there is a God that created the natural order, in other words, He's not bound to that natural order. He can make exceptions, water doesn't usually turn to wine, but God is the one that made that natural law, and He can make temporary exceptions to it if He wants to. To borrow an illustration to kind of show you what I mean here about the role of God being able to play a role in the natural world, we would need to compare two things. We want to compare two worldviews: a naturalistic worldview on one hand and a theistic worldview on another hand. So a naturalistic worldview is a worldview where there is no God, kind of an atheistic sort of worldview, versus a worldview in which God does exist. And I have this illustration that I borrowed from philosopher Ronald Nash. It simply looks like this. We're going to compare two worldviews of naturalism versus theism, okay? Two worldviews here. In the first worldview, you've got just the natural order of things, and we're going to represent this by a box, okay? All that exists is just the natural order. Everything just belongs in the box of the natural order, and outside that natural order, there's just nothing. In other words, this is the philosophy of naturalism. Basically, the box is the physical world of matter, space, and energy, and the box is all there is. Nothing exists outside the box. It's just a box, and that's all, okay? And that box has either existed forever or came into being at one time from absolute nothing. That is the worldview of naturalism. It's just the box, the natural order, just the physical world of matter, space, and energy, and that's just all there is. On the other hand, there is the worldview of theism, okay? The worldview of theism. Now in theism, the box still is the physical world of matter, space, and energy. However, there is a God. God exists outside this box. He exists outside the natural order. God created the box. God created the natural order. And number 4, God can act causally inside the box. So you can see here two different worldviews. A worldview where there's just physical stuff and nothing else, the worldview of naturalism, or the worldview of theism where there is the same natural stuff, the same physical world of matter, space, and energy. It's just that in addition to that, there is also a God existing outside the box who created this box and can act causally inside this box. Those are the two worldviews of naturalism versus theism. Now, I think we have very powerful arguments to show that the worldview of naturalism is false. In other words, we have very strong philosophical arguments to show that God exists, okay? Now, we don't have time in this course to go into all those arguments. My point here, though, is that given this layout here, if God exists, if there is a God, then miracles are certainly possible. God can act causally inside that box. So there is no way you can show that miracles are impossible, because it's just simply impossible to show that God doesn't exist. That's just going to be kind of our basis here for our further discussion, because we don't have time in this course to go into all the philosophical arguments for God's existence. All I want to show here is simply that I just want to make the simple point that if God exists, then miracles are certainly possible. There's no reason to say that God couldn't interact causally with that world and make temporary exceptions to the natural order, as Aquinas mentioned earlier.